Oran had worked as a recruitment director for Axiom Galactic Industries for 32 cycles. In that time, he had interviewed thousands of engineers from dozens of species. He had met brilliant physicists who could calculate quantum states in their heads. He had hired technicians whose 6 arms could repair machines faster than most computers could diagnose them. He had even recruited a genius who had designed half the fusion reactors in the sector. None of them had ever made him feel afraid during an interview. The human sitting across from him was different. Did not look dangerous. He was average height for his species, with dark hair going gray at the temples and tired eyes that suggested he had not slept well in years. His credentials were not impressive by galactic standards. He had a degree from an Earth institution called MIT, 15 years of experience maintaining fusion reactors on orbital stations, and a letter of recommendation that contained only one sentence. He fixed the unfixable. Twice. Oran began with his standard questions. What was his approach to malfunctioning systems? How did he handle equipment failures? What did he do when a machine stopped working? Thought about it for a moment. Then he described a time when an antimatter containment unit on his station had started to fail. The shutdown sequence was corrupted. The backup systems were offline. According to every manual, every protocol, and every safety regulation, the only option was to evacuate and let the unit explode. Had not evacuated. Instead, he had opened the containment unit while it was still running. He had reached inside, found the failing component, and replaced it with a part from a completely different machine that happened to fit. The whole process took 11 minutes. The station had survived. Oran's 4 eyes went wide. That should have killed you, he said. That should have killed everyone on the station. The antimatter would have. I know what it would have done, said calmly. But the manual was written assuming you wouldn't try. I tried. Oran stared at him for a long moment. He had heard stories about humans, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories. They said humans came from a death world, a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They said humans had survived by being too stubborn to die. They said humans would attempt things that other species would never even consider. He had always assumed the stories were exaggerated. Now he was not so sure. Why do you want to work for Axiom Galactic? Oran asked. Shrugged, I heard you have equipment that nobody else can fix. I like a challenge. Oran hired him on the spot. The insurance paperwork took 3 days to complete. The legal department filed 17 objections. The safety committee demanded a full review of company policies. None of it mattered, was exactly what Axiom needed. His first assignment was the Cascade Array on Mining Station Omega 7. The array was a massive ore processing system that converted raw asteroid material into refined metals. It had been offline for 3 cycles because its quantum calibration matrix had, according to the official report, achieved partial sentience and refused to cooperate with standard operating procedures. No engineer would touch it. The technicians had filed incident reports and requested a replacement unit. The physicists had calculated that the only solution was to remove the entire system and install a new one, a process that would take 2 years and cost more credits than most planets earned in a decade. Arrived at the station, looked at the massive machine with its blinking lights and humming components, and asked for a hammer. The station manager, a nervous named, handed him one with shaking hands. What are you going to do with that? He asked. Percussive maintenance, said, works on most things. He spent the next 14 hours inside the Cascade Array. Watched on the security monitors, expecting at any moment to see the human die in some horrible way. Instead, he saw crawling through maintenance tunnels, pulling apart panels, and occasionally hitting things with the hammer. At hour 12 found the problem. The sentience was actually a feedback loop. Someone decades ago had patched a severed optical cable with a material that was never designed for that purpose. Over time, the patch had degraded. The machine was not thinking. It was screaming in digital agony, and nobody had bothered to listen. Replace the cable. He reset the calibration matrix. He ran a diagnostic. The cascade array came back online for the first time in 3 cycles. Stared at the readouts in disbelief. How did you know that would work? Wiped grease from his hands. I didn't, but I figured the machine wanted to work. It was built to work. Something was stopping it, and I just had to find out what. Everything wants to work if you give it a chance. The report on the incident spread through Axiom Galactic within days. Within weeks, other corporations were asking questions. Within months, the entire sector knew about the human engineer who fixed the unfixable. His reputation had begun. Part 2. 6 months after the Cascade Array incident, Oran found himself managing something he had never expected, a department full of humans. The requests had started slowly. A mining company needed someone to repair an ancient drill system. A transport fleet wanted help with engines that kept failing in ways nobody could explain. A research station had equipment that predated written records of the species who built it. Every request had the same requirement: send a human. Oran had recruited 14 more humans from Earth. Each one came with stories that made his scales itch with discomfort. There was Dr. Sarah, who had kept a dying starship's life support running for 72 hours using nothing but atmosphere scrubbers designed for a ground vehicle, some creative rewiring, and what she called aggressive optimism. The ship had been 5 days from the nearest station. 200 passengers had survived because Sarah refused to accept that the math said they should all die. There was Jin, who specialized in weapons systems. He had a habit of taking obsolete military hardware and making it work better than its original specifications. Every other species knew this was impossible. Old equipment degraded. Materials broke down. Machines got worse over time, never better. Jin somehow disagreed with these fundamental laws of physics. There was, who had earned her reputation by repairing an ancient precursor artifact. 3 teams had declared it permanently inert. The technology was so old that nobody even knew what it was supposed to do. Had fixed it with solder, spite, and a 17-hour work session fueled entirely by Earth stimulants. The artifact turned out to be a translator, and it still worked perfectly. Oran watched his human department grow. He watched them work. He tried to understand how they did what they did. He failed. The problem was that humans did not think like other species. When an engineer encountered a broken machine, they analyzed it, identified the problem, and searched for the correct solution. If no solution existed, they declared the machine irreparable and ordered a replacement. This was logical. This was efficient. This was how civilized beings dealt with equipment failures. Humans did something different. When a human encountered a broken machine, they did not wait to find the correct solution. They grabbed whatever tools they had and started trying things. They used parts from other machines. They invented new techniques on the spot. They hit things with hammers and hoped for the best. It should not have worked. Every principle of engineering said it should not have worked, but somehow, impossibly, it kept working. The Galactic Engineering Consortium noticed. The GEC was the regulatory body that maintained standards across all spacefaring species. They ensured that equipment was safe, that procedures were followed, that nobody did anything too dangerous. When reports about Axiom's human engineers crossed their desks, they launched an investigation. The investigation lasted 3 months. GEC inspectors visited every site where humans had worked. They analyzed every repair, every modification, every improvised solution. They interviewed engineers from a dozen species who had witnessed humans in action. Their findings disturbed them deeply. According to the report, humans possessed a quality that no other intelligent species seemed to share. Other species viewed impossible as the end of a conversation. Humans viewed it as the beginning. Other species waited for problems to have solutions before attempting to fix them. Humans acted first and figured out the theory later. The report noted several phrases that humans used regularly: close enough, good enough for government work, it'll hold. These phrases made no sense to the GEC inspectors. Nothing was ever close enough. Work was either adequate or it was not. Equipment either held or it failed. But for humans, these phrases meant something different. They meant that perfection was not always necessary. They meant that a working solution was better than no solution at all. They meant that sometimes you had to try things even when you did not know if they would succeed. Most disturbingly, the GEC found that human repairs lasted. The Cascade Array had been running flawlessly for months. Doctor, improvised life support system, had become a template for emergency protocols on dozens of stations. Jin's weapon modifications were being studied by military contractors across 3 sectors. The humans were not just fixing things, they were making them better. The GEC released their final report with a single recommendation: do not attempt to understand human engineering. Simply accept that it works, update your insurance policies accordingly, and keep emergency containment teams on standby at all times. Read the report during his lunch break. He laughed so hard that his colleagues worried he might be having a medical emergency. They think we're magic, he told when he could breathe again. They actually think we're doing something impossible. We are, said. By their definition, that's the whole point. No, said. We're just not afraid to try, that's all it is. We're not smarter than them, we're not better engineers. We're just willing to fail until we succeed. They stop when things look impossible. We start. Consider this. That's a pretty good summary of human history, actually. It's why we're still alive, agreed. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived because we kept trying things. Now we're in space and we're still doing it. The universe says no, and we say let's find out. Axiom Galactic's human engineering division became the most profitable branch of the company. They charged premium rates because they delivered results that no other team could match. Corporations, governments, and private citizens lined up to hire them. The humans had earned their reputation. They were about to earn a bigger one. Part 3. The distress signal came from Nexus Station at 3 in the morning local time. Oran was asleep when his communicator started screaming. He answered it to find the face of an Axiom executive he had never met, pale with fear. Nexus Station, the executive said. Their reactor is failing. They need your humans now. Nexus Station was the largest trading hub in the galactic core. 12 million inhabitants lived there. Hundreds of ships were docked at any given moment. It was the economic heart of civilized space, and everyone knew it. Oran called within seconds, called the rest of the team. Within an hour, all 15 humans were aboard an emergency transport, heading for Nexus at maximum speed. The transport was rated for 8-hour journeys at top speed. Jin spent the trip adjusting the engines. They arrived in 3. Nexus Station looked normal from the outside. Its lights were bright. Its docking bays were open. Ships came and went as if nothing was wrong. Inside it was chaos. The station's chief engineer, a named Ka, met them at the docking bay. His species was famous for emotional control. Never panicked. They never showed fear. They faced death with the same calm expression they used for breakfast. Ka was trembling. The primary reactor, he said as he led them through the station. It's a design, the most stable fusion core in existence. It has run perfectly for 2 centuries. Now it is dying and we cannot stop it. What's the timeline? Asked. 14 hours until total core breach. Evacuation is impossible. There are not enough ships. Our projections estimate 7 million casualties. The humans exchanged glances. 7 million people, 14 hours. A machine that the species who built it could not fix. Show us, said. The engineering bay was massive. Technicians rushed between monitoring stations while alarms blared in 17 different languages. At the center of it all sat the reactor, a sphere of contained fire that pulsed with an irregular, violent rhythm. Each pulse was stronger than the last. Ka explained the problem. A manufacturing defect had gone undetected for 200 years. The defect was in the reactor's foundation, built into its basic structure. You could not fix it without rebuilding the entire machine, a process that took years under perfect conditions. They did not have years, they had 14 hours, now 13. Studied the readouts, examined the containment field generators. Sarah ran calculations on her tablet. Jin looked at the reactor itself with an expression that made Ka deeply uncomfortable. Jin was smiling. The good news, announced after 20 minutes of analysis, is that this is fixable. Ka's relief lasted exactly half a second. The bad news, continued, is that our solution will violate about 600 galactic engineering regulations. It will probably create a brief localized spacetime anomaly, and someone will have to manually adjust the field generators while standing inside the containment zone. That is suicide, Ka whispered. That's Tuesday, Sarah said calmly. The plan was insane by any civilized standard, and Jin would modify the containment field generators, forcing them into a configuration their designers had specifically prohibited because it created unacceptable harmonic resonance. Sarah would monitor the reactor's output, calling adjustments in real time, would enter the containment zone in a modified radiation suit and physically realign the core's magnetic stabilizers. If any element failed, the reactor would breach immediately. 12 million people would die. If everything succeeded, Nexus Station would survive. We've done harder, Jin said as he began work on the generators. Have we? Asked. That thing on Mars. Mars only had 50,000 people. Same principle, bigger numbers. Ka listened to this exchange and felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. These humans were not brave. They were not fearless. They simply did not process danger the same way other species did. They saw a problem, identified a solution, and acted, regardless of whether that solution should be possible. The next 11 hours were the worst of Ka's career. He watched the humans work with intensity that looked like madness. They argued. They improvised. They made jokes that he could not understand. They consumed huge amounts of Earth stimulants and kept working. Entered the containment zone 4 separate times. Each time should have been fatal. Each time he emerged with radiation burns, a triumphant grin, and progress reports that made Ka's technical staff question everything they had learned in school. With 2 hours to spare, the reactor stabilized. Not temporarily, not partially. The cascade failure reversed completely. The magnetic containment field, now running in a configuration that engineers would spend decades trying to understand, held stronger than it had in centuries. Nexus Station was saved. In the aftermath, as exhausted humans accepted medical treatment and equally exhausted officials processed what they had witnessed, Ka approached. I need to understand, the said quietly. How did you know it would work? Thought about the question for a long moment. When he spoke, his words would be quoted in engineering textbooks across the galaxy for generations to come. We didn't know, he admitted. That's the thing about humans. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, disasters, each other. We survived because we learned to fix things that shouldn't be fixable. We learned to solve problems before we understood them. We learned to refuse, absolutely refuse, to accept that any situation was truly hopeless. He gestured at the now stable reactor. The universe says something is impossible. We say, let's find out. Sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we die trying. But sometimes, just sometimes, we're exactly what the impossible needs. Ka stared at him. "That is not engineering," he said slowly. "That is something else entirely." "It's hope," said. "That's what humans bring to the table. Everyone else sees a broken machine and calculates the probability of repair. We see a broken machine and think, not on my watch. The math doesn't matter. The regulations don't matter. What matters is that we refuse to give up." Axiom Galactic's Human Engineering Division received a permanent contract with Nexus Station that day. Within a year, similar contracts existed with every major station, planet, and government in civilized space. The official designation in galactic employment databases changed. Humans were no longer listed under engineering personnel. Their new classification was anomalous problem resolution specialists. Every species that employed them translated it the same way. The ones you call when the universe says no, and you need someone who doesn't care. Went back to work the next day. There was a station in the outer rim with a gravity generator that kept revering itself. Everyone said it was impossible to fix. He packed a hammer and caught the next transport. The end.